At the time of this recording, I am 44 years of age, right? If you were younger than 44, if you're in your 30s, you definitely want to watch this video because I'm going to save you a lot of time, headache, heartache, and all kinds of stuff like that. So we all know we should take care of ourselves, right? That goes without saying, right? We should take care of our health in our teens, in our 20s, 30s, and especially as you get up in age. You want to make sure you take care of yourself. You want to be graceful to yourself, to your body, your mind, spirit, and all the good stuff. But it doesn't happen like that all the time. Just don't think that's the human condition most of the time. Sometimes we make things harder. Now in our 20s, we can get away with more things, right? Whether it's food, maybe lack of exercise, but you do tend to move a little bit more in your 20s because you're playing more, you're traveling more, going more places, things like that. You're more active, right? But the older we get, and this isn't the gospel, this isn't how it has to be, but I think because of the way society has shaped itself, and people buying into this idea of this is what happens when you get older. When you get older, you slow down, you don't move as much, right? I think because of that, and people believe in the story of what it means to age, that people sort of, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? People get older, once you're in your 40s, oh, that's it, right? You're over the hill, you're halfway through your life. It's just all downhill from here, right? Which is not the case. And we're seeing that on social media, and even in real life. I'm seeing some 70, even 80-year-olds, right? Still in the gym, still muscular, working out, being flexible, agile and stuff like that. And I'm seeing a lot of teenagers and 20-year-olds that don't have breath to play basketball, right? They can't make it up a flight of stairs without huffing and puffing. So, you may have heard this before, but like age ain't nothing but a number for the most part, or for half the part, right? There's another part that just like, well, no, age is a real thing. And depending on your lifestyle, you may or may not age gracefully. So Uncle Jay is about to give you 5 things that you can do to help yourself age gracefully, right? To where you're still agile, you're still, feeling good, you're looking good. You understand what I'm saying? You're still strong, still mobile and all that. Because I don't want you to buy into the BS of this is what it means when you pass 30. This is what it means when you pass 40 and so on and so forth, right? And these things would be, I don't want to say passive, but I'm going to try to like ease you into this. So if you're not already active, I don't want you to hear these things and feel like, well, because I've never done this, that I can't do it, or this is just out of my, this is above my pay grade. These are things that you can do. And we're sort of like, as we go through the 5, ratchet it up a little bit. The first thing, this may sound boring, right? But it's the most passive thing you could do out of all these, is go to sleep, man. Though throughout this video, you may hear me say the older you get, but the reality is the older you get, the more you realize how vital and how important sleep is to how you feel and how you perform. I think when you were a teenager, you don't really have these obligations to like take care of a family or to even take care of yourself for the most part, because your parents do that, right? Your guardians do that. And so things are already taken care of. So this idea that like I need to feel well rested, this is, it's sort of like an afterthought, if it's a thought at all, right? But the older you get, the more responsibility you have. It's like, all right, I got to take care of my housing. I have to take care of my job. I have to work to take care, at my job to take care of my housing, and, to buy things so I have food, so I can travel a bit like that. These things start to burn you up. And if you're not getting enough sleep, it becomes a cumulative, I think that's the word, effect, to where like at first it doesn't bother you, but then you notice yourself getting a little bit more grumpy, right? You're less patient with people, or you may lash out with people at your job, or people that in your personal life. And the older you get, I told you, you're gonna hear me say this, you're gonna hear Uncle Jay say this, the older you get, the more this sort of accumulates, and it becomes unhealthy at a certain point. And it's never healthy, right, to be sleep deprived, but you get to a point where it's like, you better take your behind to sleep if you want to sort of like bounce back, right? If you want to like reset and have as much energy as you can to achieve whatever goals or achieve whatever mission that you have at that point in your life. Again, whether it's taking care of a home, reaching some goals, taking care of the family, your spouse, right? You need energy for these things. It's similar to a vehicle, right? You can have the greatest vehicle ever, right? Your car can be pristine, right? You can have a Hummer, the brand new Hummer. But if you don't have the proper gas in the wheel, the Hummer is going to struggle. It can look real pretty on the outside, but the inside is going to be trash. And the next thing you need to do, which is pretty passive, right? Again, like I said, we'll ratchet it up as we go through the list. Is start to incorporate some type of meditation practice in your life. Again, like I said, I'm going to say this in a video a few times. The older you get, the more you realize all you really want outside of, your needs being met, the housing, your shelter, food, water, stuff like that, is you realize you just want peace, man, in whatever form that comes in for different people. To some people, peace looks like, $1 million, living out in the countryside or living in, the Hollywood Hills or whatever. To other people, is living off the grid, right? And using well water and planting seeds and stuff like that, right? You realize you just want your own form of peace. And a lot of times, if you don't have some sort of meditation practice to help you put things in perspective, right? To give you a better perspective or context of the whole thing, the whole game we call life, right? If you don't have that, you can achieve everything you want to achieve in life and still not feel fulfilled, right? There's still this void that you feel in your life because you're not actively meditating or directing your mind on, seeing the beauty in where you are now, right? You may not be where you want to be, exactly where you want to be right now, but if you incorporate meditation into your life, right, whether that's transcendental meditation, whether it's breath work, there's tons of meditations, right, whether it's prayer, right, if you don't constantly work on your perspective, that's what meditation does for me. It helps me work on my perspective. It gives me more context about what's going on now, what's going on in the past, and what I'm looking forward to in the future. Once you incorporate this into your life, you kind of become unbreakable, right? Because strength isn't always being like the strongest person in the room, meaning like you can move the most weight, right? Or bench the most or squat the most. A lot of times strength comes in the form of you being so flexible that you can't break it, because life is going to move you, right? What Jim Rohn say, it's not the set of the sail, it's not the wind that blows in life, but it's the set of the sail. And a lot of times, things can be out of our control as far as like life will affect us in different ways, whether it's like family members or your job, or you're stressed about where you are in your life. And if you don't have the ability to be flexible, right, to be blown by the wind, right, to be pushed, to be, stressed out, right, if you're not flexible, you'll crack in those situations. But the more flexible you can be, the more you can sort of like ride through the stressful times, or ride through that stress, or ride through the wind that blows. You understand what I'm saying? So meditation, to me, as the OG in the room, has helped me through that. Has helped me through life in numerous occasions, right? And again, it just helps you slow down. And to summarize how meditation makes me feel, let's say you have a friend that has that's been in a relationship, right? And the relationship is a bit toxic, right? And you, on the outside of a relationship, you can see clearly like the decision that your friend should make, right? Maybe they should cut this person off. Maybe they should set some boundaries, right? You could see sort of like the 1, 2, 3 step that they need to make their lives better, especially if they come into you complaining about the situation. But to them, because they're in the situation and they're attached emotionally, right? It's more nuanced than just like, oh, they're a bad person, you should leave them. They can't see the writing on the wall, but because you're not attached emotionally, you can see the writing on the wall clearly. You have more context, right? You're not attached emotionally to where, you're like, oh, if I was in a situation, I would just leave. But then you find yourself in a similar situation with somebody, right? A partner or a co-worker or something like that, or some situation where it's like, yo, you should just leave that situation. But because you're attached emotionally, again, life is nuanced. You don't make those decisions, right? So what meditation, to me, what meditation does is it takes you from being sort of like the character in the movie that's being like affected negatively, and it takes you out of the movie and puts you in the theater in the front seat to where now you're watching that character, right? So now as you watch the screen, yourself on the screen, you're not super attached emotionally. So now you can make wiser decisions because you have more context, right? Or you're not allowing your emotions to lead your decisions. You understand what I'm saying? So it's like, all right, that person in that movie is getting attacked by this person. The partner that they're with is a bad person. They should make the decision to set boundaries and then eventually leave. And you can make those decisions because you're not too attached emotionally. And obviously, as a human being, we live in an emotional life, right? It's the only way we really can absorb everything from life, good, bad, or indifferent. We have to, accept our emotions, but we shouldn't let our emotions run us. And that's going to happen more times than not if you don't have a practice to help pull you out of the movie, so to speak, and put you in the audience to where you can make more sound and like better decisions, right? I always say meditation just gives me like 10 extra seconds of breathing and putting things in context before I make an emotional decision. That's what meditation does for me. So make sure you get enough sleep and make sure you start some sort of meditation practice. Again, transcendental, breath work, staring at a candle, coming up with the sun and just looking at the watching the sunrise. Whatever it is you want to do, prayer, make sure you incorporate some type of meditation practice in your life, especially if you're under 30, because this is a habit that's going to take you far in life, right? And it's going to make you unbreakable, not just because you're extra strong, but because you're strong and most importantly, flexible, so that when life does hit you, it's not going to break you. You can sort of like bend and, work your way around things. This third one, I actually wanted to put number 4 where number 3 is, but again, I said we're going to ramp it up. But I actually feel like in order to get to number 4, number 3 is a nice sort of like intermittent thing you could do, right? Before you get to step 4. And that's start using the sauna. All right. Matter of fact, I'm going to give you a little spoiler alert. Number 4 is exercise, get active, right? In whatever form that is, whether it's resistance training, whether it's martial arts. But sometimes, people struggle with that, right? And I'm talking of all ages, older people, younger people too. If you start to use a sauna, like a steam room, and they have these portable saunas that I use probably 3 to 4 times a week now. It's like a steam room. Maybe most of you have been in a steam room. If you're under 30, maybe you haven't yet, but you should. They have them at gyms, bathhouses, and stuff like that. Start using the sauna or the steam room. Studies have shown that there are crazy benefits to using the sauna. And it's super passive. Yes, it's hot in the sauna, right? Or the steam room is super hot. But what happens is as you allow yourself to sit in this heat and in this steam, you develop what's called heat shock proteins, which are very healthy for you. And it sort of like gives you the same effect as if you had done a bunch of cardio, like ran for some miles or had the elliptical or the stair climber. Even though you're just sitting down and relaxing in the heat to a degree, no pun intended. But towards the end of that sauna session, it gets it's hot in that joint, right? And you have to endure. And this is where I take time. I actually do 2 birds in one stone, where I start to meditate a little bit while I'm in the sauna, right? So I know I need to meditate. I know I need to hit the sauna. So I'm going to do 2 of those at the same time. And after you get out the sauna, you feel amazing. It boosts endorphins, your dopamine, your serotonin. Like you really feel the same way you'd feel after you run for a bunch of miles, right? Now you may be a little bit more sore, but after you sit in the sauna, right, it feels like you've done a real good bout of cardio or exercise because you've sweated out a bunch of toxins. Your dopamine and serotonin and the endorphins are just on fire, right? And this is passive, right? So, you can go to Amazon or TikTok, right? There's the sauna box. There's a bunch of different things you could do, but start to incorporate this into your life. And it's not just like a mental thing, right? We're talking about biological, right? Physiological, where it helps eliminate, inflammation. Right. So if you are an athlete or if you are just struggling, with bad backs or bad knees or compromised ankles or whatever because you play sports, this will help you through a lot of that. If you think of athletes, for example, athletes don't just, somewhat like professional athletes, don't just play their game and then go home and don't work on recovery. There's a lot of recovery that comes with being an athlete. Being an athlete is healthy, quote unquote, healthy as it is in your body. It's not all the way healthy. Put it like that. It can be very stressful on your body. So they have to make sure they incorporate recovery into their routine or they won't be playing sports for long, right? They're going to suffer injury or they won't perform at their best. So they make sure the recovery is at least 50% of their programming to keep them fresh and ready to play, on game day, right? So the sauna, right, is one of these things. Hot therapy is one of these things that they incorporate in order to make sure they're at the top of their game. So you may or may not be an athlete right now, but you want to be at the top of your game in life. And the sauna is something that's very passive that can help you achieve, similar goals, right? So hit the sauna, buy a sauna, go to a sauna, bathhouse, whatever it is, but just start to incorporate that into your life. And actually studies have shown that the more you do it, the better, right? So I do about 3-4 times a week. Sometimes I'm up to 5 days a week, and I feel amazing when I'm doing it. My body feels great. My mind feels even better. So hit the sauna. Circling back to number 4. Number 4 is get active, man. We know this. You got to exercise. Going back to what I said a little while ago, the older you get, the more you realize you just want peace in your life, man. So when you're younger, more is fitness and exercise, maybe more about aesthetics, right? I want to look good for the beach, or look good for my partner XYZ. But the older you get, the more you realize exercise helps your mentality. If you can I shouldn't say force yourself, because that's not fun exercise either. If you're not enjoying your physical activity, and there's so many forms of exercise, sports, resistance training, Pilates, yoga, XYZ, walking, running, so many forms of exercise. You can get in what you fit in and find something that you enjoy doing, right? But the more you do it, the more you realize you just have a better peace of mind. You're more relaxed, right? One of my favorite YouTube, I haven't watched him in a while, but Elliot Host, he has a bunch of kids. He's like a fitness dude. And he explained that, if you have kids or you have been around kids, and you see how much they run around and are sporadic and, acting all crazy and stuff like that, and they just jump around and stuff like that. He calls it getting the squigglies out, right? And after kids do that, right, they jump around and play around and all that. And once they lay down, they knocked out because they got all the squigglies and the stresses of the day, their day, right? The little stresses they have at that point in their life, they got it out. A lot of adults don't do that. A lot of adults will carry a lot of weight from work, from home, from relationships, from goals that they haven't met at that yet in their lives, and just do nothing with that, right? And that compounds as you age, right? So if you don't have a way to sort of filter all this stress or the decisions that you have to make, it can really beat you down mentally and eventually physically. So exercise helps you as an adult get the squigglies out, so to speak. It's a way that you can continue to play in your life. Which I'm loving to see how the culture is changing, and just play more in your life. Like play sports. So I play basketball on a regular basis. So if you love sports, if you love watching it, start to play basketball, play a little bit football, right? Exercise is not synonymous with like go to the gym. If you don't go to the gym, you're not exercising. Sometimes the gym can be boring, and I'm a lifelong exerciser, right? But sometimes just going to the gym is boring. But if you start to learn a skill like martial arts, like martial art, like a sport, playing basketball, getting better at the skill of basketball or tennis or soccer, whatever. This can be your form of exercise, and you almost forget that you're exercising because you're more so focused on like the game, right? Or your skill or your team and stuff like that. So make sure you exercise or get active in some sort of way. Even if it's just going out for a walk, right? Going out for a walk, which you should put your feet in some grass, go get some sunshine, some fresh air. If the season allows, and you're part of the world, make sure you incorporate some sort of physical activity in your life, especially if you're under 30, if you're under 40, if you're in your 30s, so that you can, just be sharper and more at peace. And all these things are sort of, they intertwine with each other. Getting enough rest, meditating. A lot of times I like to be active first, right, to get the squigglies out, which makes it easier for me to sit down and meditate and get in the sauna and meditate. And if I do sort of combine these things and start to stitch these days together, like my life becomes so much more like streamlined and efficient. You know what I'm saying? And then last but not least, and people struggle with this a lot, is intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is basically, it's not a diet or anything like that. But intermittent fasting is basically when you give yourself a pocket of time, a slot of time throughout the day where you consume all your food. Most times you wake up, you don't eat breakfast, right? You may start your first meal, because there's many ways to do it, but you may start your first meal, let's say 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. And you only eat between, say, 1 o'clock and 8 o'clock or 1 o'clock and 6 o'clock or whatever your time slot is, whatever fits for your lifestyle. But it has so many physical and mental benefits that I can't recommend it highly enough. One, you want to save some bread. This idea that we're supposed to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and that depends. If you're an athlete or you have a specific lifestyle, you're a bodybuilder, you may need to consume more calories, or you may be in a position, health-wise, where you your doctor recommends you eat a certain amount of calories, whatever. But the idea that that is the perfect or the right way to eat for everybody, breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, dinner, you know what I mean, is propaganda, right? To put it plainly, right? But if you start to adjust the times that you eat, one, it starts to become a walking meditation. You start to realize that you can control your day more. And again, we need to eat to survive. Like, we have to consume some food at some point. But if you fast daily, fasting in general has so many mental and physical, even spiritual benefits. So if you start to incorporate this into your life on a regular basis, I swear it's game changing. One, your body's gonna react to it. You're not eating as much, so you're not consuming as much, so you're not getting as heavy, right? If you start to get these love handles, your neck looking a little thicker than it used to be, if you start intermittent fasting, you're gonna lose a bunch of fat. You're gonna lose weight, right? And you start to control your urges of what you want to eat, right? It starts to become less reactionary, and you start to think before you consume your food. And then when it is time to eat, the food is delicious, and it's not hard to do intermittent fasting either. One thing you got to realize too is that the hunger that most of us feel, like when you feel like, well, I can't go that long without eating. A lot of times, the reason why you feel so ravenous when you finally do eat is because you're eating BS. Right, so if most of the time you eat is bad carbs and sugars and fats and stuff like that, you eat that, and then you have your insulin spikes. You go through this whole roller coaster of insulin, right? And when you consume some bad food, your insulin spikes, right? Because it's trying to help you get rid of all the toxins and the sugar and stuff like that. And then when it drops, this is when you start to feel hungry again. You start to feel ravenous because you ain't eating but bread and BS for Lord knows how long. So when you have that gap between those bad meals, it's like, yo, I'm hungry. It's not that like, all right, if I don't eat for 2 hours, I'm going to be ravenous. It's the things that you eat that are making you feel ravenous. But if you start to incorporate healthy fats, good carbs, vegetables, fruits, nuts, seeds, stuff like that into your diet, it satiates you, and is also giving you the nutrients that you need. So it's not even just about eating food. You can eat honey buns for the next year and not be eating nutritious food and not be, nurturing your body, putting garbage in your tank, right? But if you're actually getting and nurturing your body with, again, healthy fats, nuts, seeds, fruits, and vegetables, all kinds of stuff like that, minerals, right? Whether you do a multivitamin, whatever. Once you start to get that into your body is actually nurtured now, and you start to feel more energetic, more focused, and you sort of walk around in this walking meditation. So intermittent fasting, I can't speak highly enough of. And let me know in the comments too if y'all want me to go deeper in any of these subjects. And remember, they're all interlaced, right? So to summarize everything from Uncle Jay to you young bucks out there, make sure you get enough sleep on a regular basis. This is your baseline. Take you behind a bed. Make sure you incorporate some kind of meditation, right? Whether it's intermittent, whether it's transcendental meditation, breath work, prayer, whatever it is, make sure you start to become the watcher, right, of your life instead of like the main character that reacts to everything that hits you, right? Make sure, if you can, you start to use the sauna in some way, form, or fashion, right? Whether it's you buy one from Amazon or you start to go to your local gym to hit the sauna, make sure you start incorporating that into your life. And to kill two birds with one stone, start to meditate in the sauna. Start to get active. There's no way around it, especially as you age, right? You start to lose muscle. You start to lose coordination and balance as you age. So in order to not do that, so that you wind up as one of these 80, 90-year-old people that we talked about at the beginning of the video, start to make sure you make your body strong. Right. And also flexible. I forgot to mention that, because life is not just about being able to push things or lift things. You need to be able to do that, but you also need to remain flexible so that you don't break when the inevitable wind blows or something hits you physically or mentally. You know what I'm saying? Make sure you continue to reinforce your body. And last but not least, watch what you eat. And intermittent fasting, to me, is the best way. It's not a diet, but it's just the best way to consume food. It saves you a bunch of money because you're not eating breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, dinner. Most of the time, you're just eating some lunch, maybe a snack, and then some dinner, and you feel you're being nourished. You feel great. You're not high off of sugar all the time, And once you start to incorporate these 5 things, I'm trying to tell you, Uncle Jay is trying to tell you, young buck, it's going to change your life. You know what I mean? That's it, kids. As always, y'all, ABC, always be creating, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace.